Hello, friends and nonprofit leaders. It's me, Laura Zelke, your host of the Your Nonprofit Life podcast and videocast. Thank you for being such loyal and supportive listeners. It's truly my honor to interview such amazing nonprofit leaders who passionately work to serve their communities in an endless variety of ways. The members of the Nonprofit Leadership Lab are some of the most creative, hardworking, and inspirational people on planet Earth, and today's guest is no exception. I'm about to introduce you to a woman who is proof positive the mission her organization passionately pursues on a daily basis works amazingly well. My guest is DeLashea Strawder, the Executive Director and Artistic Director of the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit, a creative youth development organization. In other words, Mosaic is a nonprofit organization working to unleash and cultivate the creative talents of young people, all while developing leadership skills which will serve them the rest of their lives. DeLashea first learned about the organization in middle school, and after much prodding in high school by friends and teachers, she finally auditioned for and was accepted to Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit, and she participated with the ensemble until she graduated. And though she never planned to return to Mosaic after her graduation from high school and heading off to college, the universe had other plans. As you listen to DeLashea's story, you'll be inspired by her strong commitment to both her career and her family. And you might be surprised how a turn in her grandparents' health actually turned DeLashea's plans upside down and flipped the journey for discovering her purpose in life right side up. During our conversation, I truly appreciated DeLashea's vulnerability when she shared about the intersectional challenges she faced every day as a young Black woman leading a nonprofit in Detroit, and how she had to navigate the situation and is constantly making sure that people's voices are heard, and that if she needs to pull up another seat at the table, she does that. You're going to love this interview with wife and mother of four, DeLashea Strawder, the executive director and artistic director of the Mosaic Youth Theater in Detroit. Hey, have you ever wished you could hear some good news for a change? Well, I might have just what you've been hoping for. Welcome to Your Nonprofit Life, where we remove our rose-colored glasses and explore what leaders are actually doing to move their nonprofits from messy to thriving without burning out in the process. I'm Laura Zelke, Director of Member Experience for the Nonprofit Leadership Lab. Join me each week to explore the ups, downs, and whoopsie daisies of your nonprofit life. Let's get started. Well, DeLashea, I am so excited to have this opportunity to interview you for the Your Nonprofit Life podcast and now videocast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I have kind of been wanting to interview you ever since the first time. I think you came maybe to a self-care Zoom, and you have this little baby with you. And how old is she now?
Well, she turned 1 on May 4th, and
Oh
her oldest
gosh.
siblings are super just over the moon that she's walking and talking and that
Oh,
they can play with her now.
oh. And how many children do you have?
We have 4.
4 children, and ages?
They're 10, soon to be 11, down to 1. So 10, 7, 5, and 1.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I am the parent of one child. We wanted more than one, but life doesn't always work out the way you want. And I honestly don't know how I would have ever handled more than one with the one that I got. Who is editing this podcast, by the way? So I love you, son. I do
That's so
not know how people do it. More than one. I don't even know. I'm so in awe of you. I am one of 4 myself, so I appreciate the family dynamic. And so Where are your kids right now?
I honestly am not sure. There is a
Okay.
storm happening here in Detroit, and my husband wanted to make sure that our tiny humans were able to be wholly themselves while also not interrupting. So they might be fishing, they might be on a ride, they might be getting ice cream, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah, they'll come home on a slight sugar high, so yeah, well, thank you to your husband for taking on daddy duty while us women here talk about nonprofits and what it's like being a nonprofit leader, what it's like being a nonprofit leader in Detroit. And we're even going to get into a little bit of intersectionality and talk about what it's like being a young Black woman nonprofit leader in Detroit, Michigan right now, and your journey there. So we'll get to that in a minute. But before we get there, I will have given kind of a brief introduction to you at the very, very beginning of the podcast. But why don't you tell us in your words, a little bit about the Mosaic. I want to make sure I get the name right. Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we are a nearly 30-year-old creative youth development organization in the heart of the city. What creative youth development means to us is, or how we define it rather, is that we activate the innate power of the arts to earn mentoring relationships with young people in order to empower and equip them to thrive in whatever it is that they choose to pursue.
And I love your mission statement. And I want to camp on that one word that or the phrase, right? Earn mentor relationships. So you're working
Yeah,
to earn tell me a little bit about why earn? That's in there, it's intentional. And I want to know what that is to you and to your organization.
absolutely. So I believe relationships are, if not the most critical part of walking alongside young people, then it's certainly up there. And in order to really build trusting relationships with peers, with adults, with young people, um, I feel strongly that you have to earn it. You have to earn that trust. You have to earn that that listening ear. You have to earn their desire for you to be in their space. Um, Otherwise, I mean, it's no different from being in school. You know, I'm there because I have to be, not because I want to be. And I believe that it opens doors and opportunities to have conversations that are deeper than surface level discussions about who they are, about what their dreams are, what their hopes are, which allow us to support them in taking advantage of the resources that they need to actualize their chosen destiny.
I love that. And I thinking back on it, when I hear you talk, it reminds me back in the day, way back decades ago, when I was in college and I was studying to be a youth minister. That's kind of where I thought I was going to go with my life. And I was working with teens all the time. The fact is, you have to earn it. Whether you want to earn it or not, whether that's a personal goal of you or the organization, you still have to earn it. And so what I love is like that recognition, like, you have to earn it. So you're being intentional about earning that right to be a mentor. And they are the ones who are then empowered. They grant it to you. You don't just take it for granted that you can, just because they're there doing something with your organization, it doesn't mean that you have the right to tell them what to do, right? Like you're building that relationship. I love that. And so I want to talk with you about your journey, but before we get going too far, tell me about your background. Like my background's a little crazy. I've got a little bit of Alexis Rose going on in the background. I've got some Frozen because I think deep inside I am Elsa. And I have what my sign says, let it go. And, I have different things in the background that are kind of me. It's my office, my adoration of Brene Brown, clear as kind, unclear as unkind. I have things for me, but like, tell me about what's behind you.
Absolutely. So you see a group of young artists. This is from a photo shoot we did the year before. We weren't able to go back into our spaces for some time. This was from a shoot called This Is Me. We were doing a highlight of the music of Pasek and Paul. And the Mosaic logo is in the center. And the reason that it's my background right now is, again, we've been out of our space for quite some time. And when I am given the opportunity to go and speak on behalf of the organization, generally I try in every space that I can to bring young artists with me. I'm also an alumnus of the program, and having had many opportunities as a young person to speak from my own experience, I think it's important that we continue to bring young people into the spaces to tell their truth as opposed to being proxy for them. And so since they can't be here right now because they're in school, they're here in spirit and you still get to see them.
I love that. So the song This Is Me, is that from The Greatest Showman?
It is. And we actually received a special message from Pasek and Paul right as we were going into Tech Week to give us, lots of good vibes and energy and to let us know that they were excited that we were doing their music. So that was really cool.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that song too. It's just so like motivational and just gets you. It seems like that would be a really good theme song for the work that you're doing at Mosaic. So before we talk more about Mosaic though, I would like the listeners and the viewers to learn a little bit more about you, DeLashea, and kind of how you got into this role, into the nonprofit sector. So I heard you say that you're an alumna of the program. Um, Tell us a little bit about like, how did you go from being part of it as a youth to now running the organization as the executive director and the artistic director?
I was introduced to Mosaic when they did a teaching artist residency in my middle school. A few years later, I would enter high school and there would be young people in the program that I was also in choirs with. And they encouraged me to audition, saying that not only did they appreciate my musicianship, but they also thought that I would be a great ensemble member. And that was one of the first times that I'd heard anyone approach, like I'd experienced anyone approaching me in that way. I just thought it was weird. Like, okay, it's a choir, right? So I sing, I can read music. What's this ensemble member business? Because that's not really how we talked about it in the choirs that I'd been in before. We talked about teamwork. We talked about, blending and things of that nature. A few weeks later, I went to the audition, which was also a really interesting experience because it wasn't just the music director that was auditioning me. There were several young people in the room, just sitting there and listening. I was also a very shy person. I am still very much so introverted. I just play an extrovert in my role. And so, going through my own imposter syndrome, hindsight is 2020, just all of the things that I was going through as I was coming into my own as an individual, I kept trying not to go. And one of the things that I would learn later from the music director is that my desire to make things accessible for the other members of the company was something that he thought was very special about me, in a way that he could figure out how to support my personal development. I'd always been a smart kid. And so to some degree, I really wasn't really pushed in the same way in school because I was getting A's, so there wasn't the same level of uh, coaching or development because that
Sure.
wasn't where folks needed to direct their
Right.
attention.
You didn't need the help that other people needed. And so they're
Yeah.
like, DeLashea, she's good, you know. And so in a way, that is kind of the rough part, right? About being able to, be a great student. Being introverted helps, I think, on some level. With that, I'll just, shout out to introverts. But so this person recognized that maybe you weren't getting the mentoring, in a way, kind of the mentoring
Yeah.
that you needed.
Going back to building that relationship, getting to know
Mhm,
me on
mhm.
a personal level and not just as a musician. Noticed that I was helping folks learn the music, helping people learn how to read the music, invited me to come in and teach to assist in a program in the Southwest Detroit area. And when I got there, he wasn't there. There was an alumnus in the room. Yeah, there was an alumnus in the room. And so, I went about the plan that we discussed and fell in love with this teaching thing. I had no idea that that was something that was even of an interest, let alone passion of mine. And then as I did that, I graduated high school. I was an assistant music director and other things in that choir and was able to teach more classes and team teach more classes and camps. Went away to college at Virginia Union University. At the time, my grandfather fell ill and my grandmother needed some additional support. So I came back to Michigan, heading to Western, and that still was too far of a drive. And so when I transferred to Wayne State, the music director we talked, we still were in communication as I left for school, that I was back in the city and asked me to come back and help him with the ensemble. And that turned into a long-term job as opposed to just coming in as an alumnus to support. And as things would go, I would continue to be given an opportunity to stretch my skills as I was studying music and music business at Wayne State. Um, and then when the founder announced his retirement in 2018, the board saw fit for me to help to usher the organization into its next phase.
Let's go back to this first experience teaching, when you thought you were going to be assisting and you get there and the person that you thought you were assisting wasn't there. Was that on purpose? Or do you think it was just kind of one of those things that happened?
It was on purpose. He was on another side of the city teaching another class. I just didn't
Wow.
know that.
And so in the scale of earning mentorship, what did that help him earn mentorship, or what, he was the mentor and so it just kind of was like, okay.
Well, at the
He
time I
saw,
didn't know. Yeah, I
right,
didn't know that he
yeah,
was on the other side of town. My focus couldn't be on what was happening. So I leaned into my value system and I let the universe and energy carry him. And I did what I needed to do in that moment. And I had another person in the room, another Mosaic alum who
right,
was actually
right.
in college at the time. And so we did our thing, and it was after the fact that we talked, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't know if you'd show up. You get into your head about things if you didn't know that I was going to be there. You're more than capable." Rick and I, who is the founder and was the artistic director at the time, talked about it. We have full faith in you, and now you have full faith in you. So
Well,
yeah.
that is what it is sometimes, right? Is just kind of getting pushed in to do something that maybe you never really imagined yourself doing, because people see stuff in you that maybe you didn't see in yourself. And I have to say that is a lot of times how I feel about the work that I get to do in the lab, or like doing this podcast, interviewing people. It's kind of one of those things where I got given an opportunity because other people believed in me. I wanted to do it, but I didn't know if I could. And to
Yes.
have other people believe in you, like Joan and Scott believing in me and believing that I could do it, gave me enough, forward motion to go ahead and try it. And then, oh my gosh, right? Then it's like, okay, yes, I'm on, I get that. So I have a couple questions for you, and we can do them in whichever order you want. One question is, I've heard you say, so like there was an executive director and a separate artistic director, but then like right now you are both. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that in the lab we talk a lot about the twin engine jet model, and it doesn't always work for arts organizations because sometimes there are three. We're actually looking at doing like a coffee talk. A coffee talk is how Joan says it, but to have like the three, a crowded cockpit is what she's starting to call it, where you have the three people. But I'm curious, I want to learn a little bit about that. And then I also want to know more about like Mosaic, like a deep dive into what Mosaic does for the community.
I can probably answer both of those together. So we are a organization that has several different types of programming. Our youth ensembles, which is the longest lasting program, it's kind of how we started, is the one that has the study by University of Michigan that formed the Mosaic model. Has kind of three different intersection points. There's the music program, which we call our Mosaic Singers. There's our Mosaic Acting Company, and then there's our Backstage Tech program. So depending on where young people's passions lie at the time, they pick a track to do an intensive study for at least a year. Many young people decide that they want to continue on that track until they graduate high school, and others decide that they want to explore their passions in the organization and learn even more about performing arts by going through different tracks. The youth ensembles are tiered in that you can enter it as a elementary middle schooler and just kind of have a discovery process, and then a deeper exploration, and then kind of an immersive experience where you're there for 10 plus hours a week. You can start working in kind of an arts entrepreneurship or arts administration track. You can do the backstage apprenticeship and really learn how the magic from the lighting and the sound design and the scenic design and the stage crew all comes together. And then in addition to that, we have partnerships in community where we are able to partner with school communities to do teaching artist residencies across several different locations in the city, and summer camps at various community locations in the city. And so that's kind of the structure, if you will, of the organization.
Can I ask a quick question on the teaching residency? What is that the students are doing that?
So it depends. We pair a professional teaching artist, so someone who is working actively in the field in their artistry, who also has a passion and experience in teaching the craft that they practice, go into either the school day or after school, depending on what that school community's needs and desires are, to work with young people to either augment their arts education programs or to provide them where there are none. When there are programs after school, we also have young artists partner with teaching artists as teaching assistants, their paid positions, to co-facilitate those experiences with young people in the school.
Wow, that sounds great. So I interrupted you, but I wanted to kind of figure out what that is. That's really what a cool opportunity for the students to be able to, apply and work with someone who's doing this as a profession. So very cool. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah, through those programs, we have leadership and autonomy from adults is ingrained in what it is that we do, helping young people to recognize and harness their own power and creativity. And so there are both informal and formal leadership roles for young artists in the program. From the time that you enter a Mosaic program as a third grader to the time that you start to transition into college. And so the teaching artist positions, the paid performance opportunities, the apprenticeship program, all of those things not only help young people to really start to see themselves as young professional artists, but also create on-ramps, if you will, to potential opportunities in this field that are not just on stage, which we think is also very important as we continue to contribute to a diverse workforce
Sure.
that is representative, of our country, our world, both
Right.
on stage and off stage.
Right.
And so with that being said, as young people like myself have opportunities to lead in a variety of different ways, the organization continued to evolve and continue to grow. And when Mosaic started, it was just for theater. Well, when Ken Anderson, who was my music director, was in the company, he kept pulling together young people to sing because there was lots of music that was written and performed in shows. He got this idea along with the young people that he was in the program with. As he came back to music direct for a show, we should start a choir. There are a lot of people that are really passionate about that. As a young person coming with this idea, Rick, the founder, was like, "You want to start a choir? Go for it." And so he then started the Mosaic Singers 4 years later in '96. And so that's kind of how things happen, right? You have this idea, okay, let's try it. If it takes, can we find ways to continue to invest in that idea, to continue to invest in you? And so as the organization continued to grow, there was the decision made by the founder and his council and the board that in order for the organization to take its next step, you have to be able to lean more into that executive director role, into the chief fund development officer. And so Rick became the I think at that time it was like the CEO and president, and then Ken, who started the Singers, became the artistic director. When the economic downturn happened, the role became one again, and then the organization continued in that way for quite some time. At our 25th year, as we faced another kind of turning point in maturation, there was an exploration of what does the Mosaic organization look like? What can it look like? What is needed for the impact that we want to be able to make in community? And so we started to try a variety of different leadership models, including going back to the model that is historically representative of larger theater arts institutions, which is, executive director and artistic director, or managing director and artistic director, and learned that while we are creative in nature, our special sauce, if you will, is that we're a youth development organization. We're a creative youth development organization. And so the kind of producing nature intentions that come with those two different tracks, if you will, or layers of expertise, weren't something that we needed right now. And so we came back to a singular organization as the founder, singular led, I guess, organization as the founder announced his retirement. And having been there, been in a leadership role as the associate artistic director, and was kind of like the leader when Rick was doing his sabbatical. The board transitioned, decided that singular person who would guide us into our next vision would be me.
And so how long have you been in the role of executive director and or artistic director with Mosaic?
Since July of 2019.
Okay, so you were in less than a year before COVID hit. This is kind of I'd like to hear a little bit about how you've had to change. And are you excited? Like, are you guys coming out of it now? Do you have a date when you're going to try and get back together? Or is that still kind of nebulous out there in the ether?
We are leaning into adaptive thinking. I would say we are definitely excited. We've been doing in-person rehearsals, fully outdoors for the last 2-3 weeks. The young artists are excited. Our teaching artists are excited.
Oh, I bet.
What the fall holds, we'll learn as we go. We are really we want to take stock and learn from and be informed by all of the changes and things that the young artists are experiencing. So we're still in conversations with them about what the season will look like starting in the fall. But we are doing fully outdoor in-person summer camps at like 5 locations across the city in just about 2 weeks. So there's lots of buzz.
So exciting. So 2019, you were put in the dual role that you're in right now. Did you go from just like, what were you doing before that?
Yeah, so for about 9 or 10 years, I was the associate artistic director. In 2018, I became the artistic director. And then in July of 2019, I was seated as the executive and artistic director.
Okay. So you've been there. I mean, really, just listening to you talk from what it sounds like, tell me if I'm right, you were participating in it from what, middle school-ish years through high school?
Technically, yes.
Technically.
Well, in middle school, yeah, in middle school, we were in the teaching artist residency. I wasn't in the ensemble until my sophomore year of high school.
Okay, but you've been involved with Mosaic in some way, right? Since, gosh, for years and years. And then you went away to college, but you weren't gone that long before you came back, and you've just kind of been there. So it's a 30-year-old organization, but you've been there for more than half of it, right?
Yes.
And you've seen the development over the years. So you've been with Mosaic for more than half of its life, and possibly more than half of your life. And I wonder what it's been like for you, like your personal journey. What has it been like being a young African-American, almost entrepreneurial in a way, but in the nonprofit sector, being a leader? What has that been like for you? Because I know that it is a conversation that's going on right now in the nonprofit sector about the lack of representation. And I wonder how that has had an impact on you personally and you as representative of Mosaic.
That's deep. That's a deep question. It's certainly multi-layered. I consider myself privileged to have had many opportunities to stretch a variety of different villagers, if you will, to kind of take me under their wing, to encourage me, to counsel me, to support me in figuring out if even this is a journey that I wanted to embark on, which I don't know that everyone has that level of support, and that reminder that they are empowered to make whatever decision it is that they want to make to live their best life. I would say in all of that, there are certainly elements of the journey that tested that tested me, that I didn't necessarily expect. Some of those things being, when you go into a variety of different spaces and you look around at the table, both literally and figuratively, and you notice that you are one of few, if not just the only one there that shares your lived experience, and learning to navigate that space, and also for me personally hold what felt sometimes like the responsibility, even though I'm not comfortable with speaking for entire populations of people, is something that can take a lot of reflection and emotional labor. I would also say that I have found that given those opportunities to be in those spaces, I have been, really leaning into finding ways to lift other young people, other people of color, other, people in general that are from historically marginalized populations, how to bring them with me, how to pull up another seat, how to, sometimes create a whole other table so that we can have the conversations that we need to have. Because I think in the arts, one thing that's really special about it is that there's a way to some degree to create space for conversation where there was not desire or opportunity, a platform, if you will, for difficult conversations. And that's something that really excites me, about the work.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to clarify, we did talk ahead of time that it was okay to have this conversation. And part of the reason is because this is life. I mean, this is like, as you've got behind you, right? This is me. So what you're doing, especially by bringing them along with you, or even like what you said, creating another table, if you have to have the conversations that you need to have, it's powerful. And I just interviewed recently Henry Burrell, who's starting a business association down in Jonesboro, Arkansas, to kind of bring together the community of color, not exclusively of color, but just to bring some more cohesion and relationship to the community down there. And one of their programs is, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that that's what you're modeling that as well, to bring people alongside and help them not only see that it's okay to, like, if you are the only person in the room, you can survive that experience, but you can also make a difference so that you can bring people with you so that you're not alone.
There are certainly elements to all of that, and also that all voices are important, all perspectives are important. We can't, there's a saying that I heard a long time ago, and I carry it with me. It's like in my gut, in my heart. Nothing about us without us. And so how I think the what we do, even in the best intentions, with best intentions, it's important that we aren't deciding for people without them being a part of that decision. And so how can we continue to create opportunities to have those conversations, and to create opportunities to build agency in all of the spaces? I think it's extremely important, and we have a responsibility as people who earned, fought, were given, however it happened, to be in the room where it's happening, to have to lift that up, right? We have to talk about it, and not just talk about it. We have to be a part of making the change. And sometimes that means giving up your seat.
Yeah. What's hard for me to take in from what you're sharing here is the fact that you're telling me that sometimes you have to give up your seat at the table, for other people. And I get that, but we either need to build bigger tables, or we need people in majority culture to give up their seats so that there's more representation at the existing table if we're not going to build a bigger one. Would you agree with that?
I think it's all important, and they're all conversations that need to be had, right? There are groups of people that I can have conversations with about things that are important to me that represent a variety of different perspectives. Sometimes those conversations can be had in, if you will, mixed company, and other times there are conversations that need to be had with just a specific group or subset. And what I think sometimes is a point of tension is that folks don't honor that those two things have to take place, and need to take place, and should take place, and we should respect when it's taking place. And then I have, lots of thoughts about tables, period. Do we need them? can we meet up in a park? Like, is that
right?
I think table is limiting, right? There's only so many seats. So
Right.
why is there a table? Do we need a table?
Right. And there you have it. I mean, really, preach. Yeah. Do we even need tables? Who came up? It's yeah. Thank you. I just have to kind of like let that wash over me for a minute. Profound. So as we're wrapping up here, DeLashea, and I just want to thank you first of all for such a great interview. And you've made me think so many times. I won't even say how many edits we have because I've had to kind of stop and think and rephrase. I have learned from you, and I think that anyone who is able to serve with you, especially the kids coming up, have such a great role model in what you have done and how you have just really seized every opportunity. Well, maybe not every opportunity. I don't know your life, but it seems like as opportunities for personal growth have presented themselves to you, you have leaned into it and figured it out. And you've had, like you said earlier on, a village to help you along the way. And then you are working on an ongoing basis to earn the right to be part of someone else's village, and someone else's village, all those kids in the background, plus probably, more kids coming up through the ranks. And the work that you're doing is so transformational. I just want to acknowledge, because I saw this on your website last night, that you got on the radar of Mackenzie Scott. And I'm really interested to know, like, I saw that you had a thank you, Mackenzie Scott, on your website. So what's that all about?
I mean, I'm still learning to form the words. So many feelings of gratitude, of responsibility. I I don't know how we got on the radar. I'm grateful that we have. I've been sitting with it and like just thinking about, and sometimes I start weeping. So if I do, it's just what it is. Because we sit and I get to sit and dream and vision cast with the young artists all the time. And as I think about what that level of trust and support and encouragement that comes with a gift and an acknowledgement of someone who is really pushing the boundaries of philanthropy and what it means to give back, what it means to uplift. I get really full, really full, because the opportunities that this will create, the doors that this will open, um, the possibilities are endless. And I am so, so very grateful that we even have this opportunity.
Well, it couldn't happen to a more deserving organization and leader, is what I want to say. Um, you've lived this. It's in your heart, it's in your DNA to impact these lives. And I remember early on, you mentioned a study from the University of Michigan, and you said that you have a Mosaic framework in a way. So I wonder,
Yeah.
do you all have any plans of expanding outside, like taking this outside of the Detroit area, or are you going to stay focused really in the area where you are? I mean, Detroit is huge, so it's no small community, that's for sure. But like, do you have any plans, or is that something that's maybe a dream?
Well, it's funny that you ask. I'm asked this question quite a bit, and as young people continue to experience Mosaic, I mean, we've been in existence for almost 30 years. There are alumni all over the country and all over the world, and oftentimes they talk about jokingly, sometimes not jokingly, I'll just start a Mosaic here in Albuquerque. Like, so I I don't want to put limits on dreams or visions or opportunities for the future. Right now, we are very much so focused on supporting the thousands of young people that are here in the Detroit area. One of the opportunities that came out of moving into the digital space is that we were also able to reach young people from all over the globe. And I do definitely think that we'll continue well into the future to keep some element of virtual programming. But in terms of our face-to-face, in-person programming, definitely we're very much so focused on supporting the young people in our communities.
Well, I'm excited to watch continue to, like, Mosaic's on my radar now, and I want to watch and I want to see what happens, and how you grow and develop over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's just really cool. And who's going to be coming up through your ranks, and who are the next leaders of Mosaic, as you continue to grow and develop. And so, what is, like, I'm sure that people are going to want to get in touch with you. Do not bug DeLashea about Mackenzie Scott. I'm just going to say that right now. I know that we were talking about it internally at the lab, like how can we get a hold of them? But I understand there's a non-disclosure. So I just want to put that out there right now. Do not bug DeLashea about how to get in touch with Mackenzie Scott. That is not the point of this podcast, and it's not the point of why we brought it up. We're just so excited for you. But if people want to get in touch with you about other things, and I assume you're still fundraising. Like, this isn't this does not take away that connection to your community that you're building, that you've built over the past 30 years. Just because you get a large donation or sponsorship from a philanthropist does not take away the need for the local community to really continue paying into and supporting your organization. And so if people want to support you, what's the best way to get in touch with you and find out more about your organization?
Absolutely. So our social media channels, per the recommendation of the young artist, are very active. We can be found at Mosaic Detroit on all social media. And our website is www.mosaicdetroit.org. On that website, you can find my email, and I'd love to talk to you if you'd like to kick it.
That sounds awesome. And we will put links to all of that on the show notes page. And I'm going to try and get a video from your YouTube and put that on there as well, so people can kind of take a look and see what you're all about. And I just can't thank you enough for spending, an hour with me this morning, just kind of kicking it, as you said. um, just to do this interview and to give the listeners and again now viewers, I still can't believe we're doing it on video, but whatever. Well, the world has changed, so I'm just kind of going with it. But uh, to give people an insight into the important work that you're doing and your heart for the kids. And I want to say one more time, tell your husband thank you for taking care of all the littles. Hopefully they don't come back too hyper because that could kind of mess with the rest of the day. And anyway, thank you so much for your time, DeLashea. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. And I will see you in the village.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening. To access the show notes or share feedback on this podcast and link over to our socials, visit our website at yournonprofitlife.com. That's yournonprofitlife.com. And hey, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you're going to love The Village. It's our exclusive online community where we take what we're learning in the Nonprofit Leadership Lab and apply it. We take it to the next level with live Q&As, boot camps, online book clubs, and legit support from experts committed to helping you extend your nonprofit life. By the way, since we're just getting started, it would mean the world to us if you'd subscribe to the podcast and leave a great review on iTunes. The reviews will help us get the podcast in front of more people as we try to take the whole sector from messy to thriving. See you next time.